Hey everybody, it's Chance from Aquaescape. So, last video we made the soil. Now, today what we're going to do is make the bins up. Making the bins is very easy. It's going to be a very short video, but I figured I would show every step, every process involved. Moving this out of the way a little bit. So, these are the two bins that I primarily use. You have a medium mortar tub. You can get them at Home Depot, Lowe's. Tractor Supply sells something similar. They're a little bit heavier duty, a little bit larger, and a lot more expensive. These are really cheap at Home Depot and Lowe's. And then a shoebox size Tupperware container. You can get these at Costco in containers. I believe they're sold in a six pack for like $10 or something like that. I don't know. But they're great. They come with lids too. The lids are awesome for when you're converting submerged aquatics to immerse. You can use the lid. One of those Mexican tree ants, sorry. You can use the lid to hold humidity in a little stronger even inside of the greenhouse. Helps with converting. But today we're just going to be filling these two up to show you what I do. So I just take the soil, start adding it in here. Now I will add some fertilizer. Just give me 1 second. Forgot I put it away. So I will just take like a nice sprinkle of fertilizer. Again, there's no real ratio to it. Just a nice little sprinkle, handful, whatever size you have. Just so there's a little bit in there towards the center of the bin. Trying to keep things as level as possible and filled as level and even as possible. This will help prevent any kind of nutrient pools you may get. So I fill it up about 1 inch below the top here. And this soil is going to compact down once we get it wet and put the safety zorb on top, which is what we're going to cap it with. So filling it up a bit is always advised. Put another layer of fertilizer in here. Because remember, I don't use liquid food or feed throughout the process of these plants. I only use a foliar, and that's it. So I'll use a foliar feeding and what's in the dirt here. I then also cap it off with should have grabbed this when I went in there too. Cap it off with some more earthworm castings. Again, not a ratioed amount, just so I can see it on there, see the mix of it. And this is going to be towards the top, again, to help for root development, things like that. This is going to be that layer. So if you've ever dug a hole, if you just go in your yard and you dig a hole, you'll see that the earth, the ground, is in layers. We all know that there's like the crust, mantle, and core, and blah, 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 blah. But even the topsoil, the top layers of dirt are in layers. You can see why plants grow the way they grow. And replicating that in your bins is, I think, important. I always try to keep things as close to the way I find plants growing in nature when I try to grow them in here, which is why, again, why I use soil and not inert things like perlite or clay or whatever, sphagnum. So just making sure I don't have any clumps of stuff in here, and making sure that everything is nice and even. So now what I do, I take a hose and I have it on the mist setting, and I water everything like with the mist setting. Even when I'm watering in the greenhouse and I'm doing the bins and stuff like that, it doesn't mess the soil up, so it doesn't make a huge disaster of a mess when I spray the soil. As you can see, it's not like blowing chunks of soil everywhere. And that's important. You don't really want to, once this bin is set and watered in and the plants are planted in it, you don't really want to keep messing it up. Something I didn't mention from the get-go, before you even add the dirt in there, you want to sterilize the bins. These are brand new. This one just had dirt in it from this same thing because I had started doing it before I made the video. But you never want to use bins that are old, so if you're recycling bins from a previous grow, or if you're using old bins from whatever, just sterilize them with some, you can use peroxide, or you can use alcohol, or even diluted bleach works really well. Just sterilize the bins. Even white vinegar in the sun will work. But that will kill any pathogens, any mold spores, anything that you may have dealt with in your previous grow, or anything that if you're using like hand-me-down equipment from somebody else that that person may have dealt with, or even something that you could have picked up from it being in storage. So just always sterilize. It makes life easier. Now I don't run the bins really wet. I don't run them with like cooling water or anything, so that's why I'm watering from the corners in. I'm trying to make sure that everything gets watered evenly. It's really important that the soil is saturated evenly. Otherwise you'll get nutrient pooling and you'll get pockets where you'll have formation of basically cyanobacteria on top of the soil, and that's from the nutrient pooling. And that comes from the soil being uneven or chunks of soil, which is why I screened my mix. So refer to that video with the screening process, but it's very important not to leave chunks of stuff or have things uneven. I'll even be pushing it down a bit through the sides. So I just take my other side of my palm and I kind of push through the corners of the container all the way along the sides of the container, and then flat hand the rest in. Just trying to get out any excess air, or maybe So for the safety absorb cap, I put about a 2 centimeter cap on here. The reason for the safety absorb cap is that it really helps retain the moisture of the bin, so I don't have to water as much. It stops evaporation, basically. And it also helps prevent all sorts of pests like fungus gnats or any kind of soil-dwelling insect. Because they don't really like the clay. They don't really like the hardness of it, I guess, because they can't really dig through it or get in it to lay their eggs like they can in the soil. So it really helps to have a nice layer of safety absorb. And again, like I was saying, it is calcified clay, and it does add a bit of calcium and ferrous into it. As far as what types or what they're derived or whatever, I don't know. But I know it's there because I've tested the ppm of it and then tested the calcium of it and the ferrous or iron, and yeah, definitely both were changed. So now I'm just finishing the watering part of it. And I recommend at this point, especially if you're using a large container, to have this bin in its spot where you're going to be growing. Because it can get heavy. These bins can weigh upwards of like 50 to 60 pounds once the soil's all wet and the water's in it. and no need to like give yourself a hernia to try to move it. So you can add the water into the bin once you have it in its final spot or wherever you're growing it at. That's probably the easiest way to do it. So for video's purposes, I don't want to get my fertilizer all wet. Again, no pooling water. It's hard to tell where the water's at because of the fact that it's not a clear bin, but what you can do if you're really curious, if you need to know, you can take a popsicle stick and you can go down into the center of the bin and pull it back up. I'd wait about 2-3 minutes after a water and you'll get an indication there, kind of like you would on an oil dipstick or whatever. But you'll see a super saturated part of the stick. That's where your water is at. And what you want basically is if you have 4 to 5 inches of substrate, you want the water to be about 1.5 to 2 inches below the top of your substrate. So again, no pooling water, no water above the substrate, no water on top, no visible water, but you want the water, you want the soil to be well saturated, at least for the first 3 inches. That will allow your aquatics to have the water they need to grow. Another thing, when you're growing this style, I find that it works much better in super saturated conditions. So humidity above 70%, even higher if possible. Super saturation is above 100%, which I get to in these houses, which is where you have basically just water condensation dripping everywhere. At that though, when you get to those levels, you have risks for molds and other things, but you just regulate that with fans and airing out the greenhouse and such. But that is key. Keeping the humidity up when you're growing in a dry-ish situation like this is key. Otherwise, your aquatics are going to shrivel up. They aren't going to be happy at all. Great conditions and be fine. But if you're trying to grow, say, like Ludwigia white, it needs very wet, very humid conditions. So to achieve that, again, make sure whatever you're growing in has a humidity of about 70 to 100%. Anything above 70. If you're sitting at like 70, try to get it up a little bit higher, to be honest with you. So, yep. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. If you feel that I missed something or went too fast, or if I did something and didn't say it, let me know. I'll be sure to reiterate how I did it. Again, the soil mix is in the video prior. You can just look it up. That'll show you what I did to make the dirt that you see in this bin right now. So please like, subscribe, and share these videos, guys. Follow me because I'm going to completely blow out this greenhouse with all sorts of rare aquatics. I've been in the process of acquiring stuff from all over the world again, as well as reacquiring plants that I had in the past that I think need to make a bit of a comeback. And then we'll also be going out on some adventures and finding some new plants too to throw in here. So, like, subscribe, share, and follow, folks. Have a good one.